Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Today, I wanted to talk about why can't all of our representatives and senators be like Thomas Massie? If you haven't checked this video out from YouTube or anywhere else, Thomas Massie comes out and he talks about the brace rule, and he's a firebrand. But my question is, I only see Thomas Massie, sometimes Ted Cruz, talking about actual issues in the 2A, and it seems like they're very genuine. Now, understand, I don't necessarily trust politicians nowadays, but seeing Thomas Massie on other podcasts, seeing what he's willing to do and how much of a die-hard ardent supporter of our rights are, I'm a big fan. But being behind the blue curtain or the blue iron curtain of New Mexico, that isn't necessarily what I get. See, in New Mexico, unlike the cool people in Kentucky, we have a really congested population centers around Santa Fe, around Albuquerque, around Las Cruces. And they overrule the rest of the population of the state. Now, what ends up happening is we end up with people like Ben Ray Lujan and Martin Heinrich. And Martin Heinrich likes to talk a big game about how he's a hunter and how he supports the Second Amendment. But ultimately, what ends up happening is the edicts from our governor get passed down to him, and he votes along party lines. Now, Thomas Massie is known as a Republican, I believe, but he's actually more libertarian and is a libertarian, I believe, just like Rand Paul. They ended up with party next to him because they couldn't get elected if they didn't have that, because that's how the American political system works. It doesn't make a lot of sense because it seems like a lot of the people that are independent actually speak more for us middle of the road, or more of us that actually are just more freedom minded. I have no problems being middle of the road, and there are some things I absolutely am with issues, specifically around who you sleep with. I don't care. It's none of my business. Never has been. And I believe wholeheartedly that, that has been reflected in the American political system now. If anything, what has happened is the left has taken over. And anytime one side takes over political arguments or political speech, so much so that they dominate it, they end up screwing someone else. This happened back in the early 2000s with Bush and the Republicans. That's how we ended up with the Patriot Act, which is probably the most restrictive towards American freedoms and liberties. They're using that to spy on American citizens. Thomas Massie, I don't believe was in there, but I know he spoke out about it later on when they tried to renew the Patriot Act. So I'm asking again, why is it that us American voters, specifically behind blue lines, don't ever seem to get our voice out? It seems like no matter what we do, no matter what we vote for, we can't get out of where we're at. With all the political actions that are going on right now in New Mexico towards restricting gun rights, it seems like our local reps, while they're responsive, are willing to make deals so that they can get other back alley deals done around jobs and other things. And I understand that you have to play politics, but when it comes to our rights, the way it comes down from our forefathers is that these rights are ingrained by just being born in the United States. There's such a thing as negative rights. Those are rights you always have. And there's such a thing as positive rights. Positive rights are where you are granted those rights or those permissions from the government. And the left and a lot of Republicans seem to think that the government is the one that ordains these rights and hands them out, when in fact that is not the case. the case was that we would never, ever have to be worried about these rights. These rights were given to us by the sheer virtue of being born in the most God-blessed country on planet Earth, the United States of America. And while I have a lot of issues with the current political system, because I don't feel that the average person is being reflected anymore, and instead I see lobbyists that are going hard and heavy after our politicians, and our politicians are willing to sell us out so that they can make a quick buck. I've seen it firsthand when it comes to the education system. Old Benny Ray Lujan came up right after the shooting in 2017, promised the sun and the moon and the sky to help secure schools. And the best thing we got was that the public education of the Department of Public Education decided that they would give us a little bit more money for the security initiatives that we had in Aztec. Where did that land? The district ended up paying a lot of what they did for security. That's why it wasn't as expansive as they wanted, and why they continually have to upgrade this stuff just to fix public perception. But at the time, politicians came and they promised everything. Ben Ray Lujan is so popular up here in northwest New Mexico that he came up here to speak, and he was chased out of the cafe and chased back somewhere else. He's not a popular guy in northwest New Mexico, but there's not enough in the people that vote, actually, get out and vote, to make a difference to say no. So Benny's back in. If you didn't know, Benny is Grisham, our governor's cousin. So if you don't believe in crony politicians, they're there. They're part of the Lujan family, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek around here, known for corruption in New Mexico. But I have no avenue. I have talked till I'm blue in the face to my reps and my senators at the federal level, and I can almost guarantee you that when those gun bills come up, they'll be one of the sponsors, or they're going to vote with them against what the vast majority of us have asked for. Now, I still call, I still talk, try to, and I send emails, but I know it's landing on deaf ears. And it's disheartening to know that this is the system and the tools we were given as people to say no. Because the next one in the toolbox is violent and bad, and no one wants to use it, least of all me. But if our representatives, if the people in power that we have had to put in power because we had no choice, will not represent us, and the Speaker of the Roundhouse in New Mexico is the buddy, or was the buddy, of Grisham, then we have no shield against tyranny. The best shield we've ever had was the county sheriffs. And while they do a lot, they can do more. And I know it gets uncomfortable. And that's why I've called them out, specifically about the COVID stuff. That should be a reminder of just how corrupt that the people at the top are, and how much you shield us from them. If this bill passes, it's already passed, it's already law, because the Alphabet Agency decided that was the thing to do because Biden pushed on them. Trump's the one that gave them that idea with the bump stocks. Now we're in for a long legal haul to try to get our rights back, because a few people won't stand up and put a spine back in themselves and speak up and say, no, these rights you cannot infringe upon. At the end of Massey's speech here, he goes off and says, shall not be infringed. It doesn't get more clear than that. But there always seem to be semantic arguments from the left and the right about describing what these things are and what they aren't. At the time of our Second Amendment, when it was drafted, There was such a thing as privateers. Privateers had the best military hardware possible, and they were tasked from time to time by the American government to act on their behalf. So there's no argument saying that weapons of war don't belong in the hands of civilians. They damn sure should. Now, I don't know about nuclear weapons because, well, I don't trust some people with weapons. Should you be allowed to own them? Yes, but there's another conversation that needs to come up. People laugh at this stuff, but it's true. Where's the logistics behind it? Saying someone you can have a nuke, do you know what it takes to have one personally? They're not one of those things you store forever. They need maintenance, they need upkeep. They take millions and billions of dollars to keep running. There isn't a civilian that I know that could have a nuke. I don't even think Bill Gates could pull that off, or Bezos, or anyone else. It takes millions and billions, and you need technical expertise and a place to do this. So that conversation that comes up, do you support people having nukes? Absolutely. I just don't see them being able to afford it or to be able to maintain it. Why? Because there needs to be a check on our government. After 3 years of living behind the COVID emergency restrictions, and knowing that our government at any given time can go back and say, hey, we're back under restrictions. That should have been an eye-opener. It was for me. And now it's time to hold people to the fire. And we didn't see the red wave. So that says that people want more moderate actors, and I'm okay with that because I agree that some people are too extreme. At the same token, some of them aren't extreme enough because they need to advocate for the American people, not the business interest, not that one party or that one group that found a way to fund your organization so that you can get more votes the next time you vote or the next time you run for office. It's time to do what you were put in there to do. Stand up for us. I shouldn't be having to advocate for Thomas Massie in New Mexico because he's from Kentucky. I have shooters and I have representatives here in New Mexico that are just as ardent. They're usually local reps or senators. Senator Pete Domenici was a very much kind of on the fence on the Republican side, and he did a lot of things that some people didn't like, but he did a lot of things for the 2A that I think went a long ways and we're having to fight for now. The 2A isn't one of those chits to trade tick for tack to get something else. This isn't like a driver's license. This isn't like legalizing weed or anything else. These rights have always been there and will always be there. If you've looked at the news lately, you've seen that New Jersey has a stay on their latest ban on concealed carry, and it leads down that pathway of constitutional carry. And this is why I've said in the past that maybe we should take some clues from those guys that got marijuana legalized in 25 states, because they did something right, and we need that type of action in the 2A. So I ask you again, all of you reps, if there's reps or senators from New Mexico, sorry, I'm getting a little sick, I think, that now's the time. Now's the time to prove that you're here for the American people or for the New Mexicans and say no. It shouldn't be just the Thomas Massies. When you have Dan Crenshaw come out and say that a law is for guns, banning guns is a bad thing, Dan Crenshaw is the most backwards leftist that pretends he's not a leftist. The eye patch man is a turncoat, is what I'm trying to get to. But when he even comes out and says, no, this is wrong, this is illegal, there's something we need to talk about. So take your pistol ban, roll it in a cone, Stick it where the sun don't shine. Just like all the other laws you're trying to pass right now at the state level and at the national level. At the national level, we're facing Feinstein's assault weapons ban 20,000.5 because every time she's ever got a chance, and she's retiring this year, she's introduced that bill. Well, New Mexico, it came home to roost. We're seeing that same type of bill or action in House Bill 101 here. House Bill 9, a magazine capacity ban. They're wanting to go so draconian here that you can't even use a 10-round magazine. It's got to be a 9-round magazine. I don't know of a company, a modern company, one that makes a 9-round magazine for a concealed carry pistol. Because now your normal pistol is considered an assault pistol. Because the left, and politicians specifically, and the media, like to change the language. So now we're having to combat assault pistols as well as assault rifles. Assault's an action. It has nothing to do with these devices. A gun is wood, metal, plastic. That's about it. The person's the weapon. And until people realize that it's bad people, bad actors doing bad things, we're going to end up with the same result. You know, as a gun owner, I'm willing to talk about that 1% that I believe that is out there that absolutely shouldn't own firearms. And when I say that they're unsafe, which is a big deal because you're threatening other people, they're mentally unhinged or unmoored, which is, again, another big deal. I don't want those people to hurt someone else. Or they're criminals. And while I'm okay with criminals who have went to jail and served their term, they've served their service to the United States. They need their rights back. If they're nonviolent, I'm okay with that. But here's where we're at. And we can have a discussion about that because there are people that are dyed in the wool says, no, absolutely not. Felons that do stuff don't get that back. And I understand that because they don't get their voting rights back either. And I believe that if you served your debt to society, you're done. If we don't have a path to redemption, even in our prison system, and some of those people, I believe, need to be locked away forever. But if there's no path to redemption, we're going to end up with the same stuff we see all the time. Repeat offenders that are always stuck in the system. We got to fix that. And the only way we fix that is through conversations and to hold people to the fire. And if no one else is going to do it, guess who's stepping up? I hate that I have to focus on the political landscape for the Black Rifle Operators Union. I don't have a lot of firearms. You know, I have enough that a lot of my friends are envious. I'd like to show those off and show you that this fat man can roll pretty good down the hill and do his training drills and is fairly competent at what I do. I always work to improve. But that's just it. That's how I've always seen humanity, is we improve. You know, there's nothing different from someone that's shooting a rifle than someone who's just an archer trying to hit the target at a different distance. The difference is we're doing the same type of activity. We're just doing it in longer ranges and with modern technology. So that's what I've got to say today. Depending upon how my allergies or whatever I'm coming down with roll, there may or may not be an audio podcast tomorrow. So like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great. Don't forget to rumble.